Feast week. All right, so this is the culmination of autumn, which is crazy that we're already talking about this. So the autumn feast, of course, if you're in the US, this is Thanksgiving, but it is also just a lovely story to just share about the gratitude of the harvest and saying goodnight to the garden. There's a few, I'll talk about the songs this week too, that are a few kind of special points. So our story this week, and this week I'll show you our little craft. This week, the autumn feast. This story is longer. It has part 1, part 2. So just as you prepare to read this story, of course, the audiobook will be, I'm not sure if he'll release it in 1 part or 2 parts, but this is a longer story because it finishes up the whole season. So just be aware of that as you're planning your story reading with your kids. With younger ones, you might want to split this one up over 2 days. It might be a little bit long to read all the way from part 1 to part 2. So we have them preparing for the autumn feast, and we have this whole kitchen prep. It starts actually with this scene right here. Thumbkin sitting on his mushroom, fiddling My Merry Mushrooms. So this is where this scene comes from and where this comes in. This is the morning of the autumn feast. Thumbkin is playing his violin on his mushrooms, singing about his merry mushrooms. It's a really sweet, little lovely song. So he's just singing about his mushrooms, and then of course he plucks one up and heads inside to make, to start cooking for the day. So they are inside and they are getting excited to start cooking. And it is, if a Thanksgiving morning, everyone's in the kitchen, everyone's cooking, everyone's chopping and baking, and it's all a big, really fun thing. And they're just chopping and baking and cooking, and it is a lot of fun. And then Hamilton asks, is it really necessary to make this much food? And everything stops. And then we have this incredible song that Nathaniel wrote, Around the Table. And it's about, food is not just about how good it tastes. It's about who's around the table. It's about bringing friends and family together. And they all sing this lovely song about really what this means and how food brings people together. And it's not about how much it tastes. It's not about just cleaning your plate. It's not just about something yummy. It's about bringing friends and family together around the table. So this song, I think, especially in our culture right now, we're kind of unpacking a lot of, old food disorders that we grew up with as kids, and all of this hyper nutritionification of food, where really for a child to just celebrate how food brings us together. And it's not about this or that, it's just about the connection of the food. And I think it's such a lovely song, again, ahead of a big feast where there's tons of food, but just to realize that the whole purpose is connection and friends and family. So they sing this together, and it is just lovely. And then of course, something I love about this story and this week is we have Thumbkin and Rudabug make a green bean casserole together with Thumbkin's mushrooms and Rudabug's green beans. So they come together to create that recipe, which is one of my favorite Thanksgiving recipes, which is in the book. So really delicious thing there, but it's fun how it's integrated into the story with those two characters. So part 1 is your preparation. It's the kitchen scene, right? And then part 2 is the actual autumn feast. So they're together and they're really celebrating. Now, you'll see how these two songs, we have a lot of songs this week, right? And they're integrated. But one thing that is fun is in part 2, you'll hear the blessing and Garden Goodnight. Now, those songs might be familiar from our Daily Songs album, but both of these songs were actually originally written for this song, for this scene right here. And then the blessing, we thought, actually, this is just lovely, so we can actually adapt this and we didn't even need to adapt it. We just added it to the Daily Songs album as a blessing you could sing every day. But it was originally written as the autumn blessing for Thanksgiving. So the blessing song really is, in our heads, our Thanksgiving song, because we're showing gratitude. Everyone is welcome here. Table set, food is served, fill your cups with cheer. So that song was written as this Thanksgiving song. And originally it was Thanksgiving song, originally it was called Autumn Blessing. And then we realized this is really sweet. We could use this any day. So it's on the Daily Songs album, but its original place in the story is right here for their autumn feast. So you can kind of just get a little more sense of how that song was written. And then we have this just lovely song, this lovely story about the friends around the table and sharing what they're grateful for. And so they go around and they're sharing how they're grateful for their new friends who have joined them. They're grateful for Mr. Mole, they're grateful for Hamilton, who are now a part of their community. And it's really, really sweet. So they eat and, you know, they cheers their cups. And then at the end, there's this very kind of poignant ending where it's time to say goodnight to the garden. And of course, for Rudabug, his gardening season is over. He's the gardening gnome. So it's this very bittersweet time for him. And he, you know, the air is getting colder. The Winter King is awakening. Winter is coming. And so the very last scene, you see Rudabug kind of standing in front of his garden beds that are now covered in a bed of leaves, ready for the cold nights of winter, and he sings to his garden goodnight. Now, this song, Garden Goodnight, again, you'll recognize the tune from the Goodnight song we have in our daily songs. But again, this song was actually written as Garden Goodnight right here. And then of course we realized this is a really sweet tune. This could be, if we change some of the lyrics to Darling Goodnight, this could be a really lovely lullaby. And so we adapted it and added it to the Daily Songs album. But the song was originally written as Rudabug singing goodnight to his garden. And I think the lyrics here are just really beautiful. So you can picture, you know, burly Rudabug having this moment, saying goodnight to his garden, kind of preparing himself mentally for the cold months ahead, and that he won't, you know, he says, I'll see you again in the spring, to his garden. So it's a really, really sweet way to close out the season and to say goodnight to the garden. So again, if you are in Canada and you are having your Thanksgiving soon, this part right here is something that you might want to save for the end of the season. Now, there is part 1, part 2. So if you want to use part 1 of the Autumn Feast story for your Canadian Thanksgiving, as you prepare and your children are going to see you working in the kitchen and getting ready for the feast, that is great. But then there's parts of this that you might want to save for the very last week of November before we head into winter. So then, of course, we have our songs here that I mentioned, Around the Table, Lovely, Autumn Blessing, and Garden Goodnight, all of those lovely, lovely songs, and Merry Mushrooms in there as well. So lots of fun songs that week for you to just enjoy. All right, so Feast week, we're gonna start with our Play-Doh. Of course, you'll probably have leftover Play-Doh at this point because it might be a busy week of cooking, so you could just pull out that leftover Play-Doh and have your children play with that. Now again, for Feast week, I wanna just look at this overview here with you all, because this is a week that you do not have to do what I tell you to do if you do not want to. So this week, the way I wrote this is to intentionally have you preparing for your autumn feast so that your children can come alongside, and it's woven into your homeschool week that your children are working alongside of you to rhythmically work ahead to culminate for your Thanksgiving Day or for your autumn feast, right? Now, think ahead on what you'll actually be making for your autumn feast or your Thanksgiving, right? You can use the recipes that I have here. They're some of my favorite recipes. They're delicious, but if you're in charge of bringing X, Y, or Z to a family Thanksgiving, swap those and use those as the opportunity to have your children come alongside the preparation. So this week it's less about these specific recipes and more about bringing our children alongside the preparation of a feast or a festival and showing them the work that goes into it and the planning ahead of time. Okay, I know I need to make this casserole for Thursday, so I'm gonna start chopping this and we're gonna, prepare this because this recipe can go in the fridge and all of that, and they can see the planning that it takes to really prepare for a big feast and a big celebration. So swap these out with whatever recipes you actually need to get done this week, or if it's just a busy week, you can be looser on your homeschooling rhythms, but the hope is that you can lean on these homeschooling rhythms if you want to integrate these things so that it doesn't feel like one big crazy day, all right? So I'll walk you through how I have laid it out, but give yourself freedom here for whatever you need this week to look like, all right? So the groceries here is all your grocery list if you're gonna be using these recipes. And this kind of note here kind of reiterates what I just said about if you're preparing for Thanksgiving. So back to our activities. So that morning, cinnamon clove Play-Doh. Our main lesson, our life skill that day one is chopping beans and mushrooms for Rudabug and Thumpkin's green bean casserole. Now, this is the best green bean casserole I've ever had. This is my favorite recipe. I refined it. It's the best. A lot of times green bean casseroles are with the cream of whatever soup and canned beans, and it's just not anyone's favorite. But this, I tell you, give it a chance because it is rich and it is delicious. It's all fresh ingredients. It is so savory. Whenever I make it, Nathaniel just wants to like eat it straight from the pot before I even make it into a casserole. It's so delicious. So give it a chance. And again, it's a fun way for children to, the beans and mushrooms are really easy to chop with like a wooden knife or a child-safe knife. So it's a really great way for them to get involved. And again, it's thumbkins mushrooms, it's rutabugs, green beans. They can picture it coming together in the story. So it's also a great way to get them maybe a little excited about eating some vegetables. Chop those beans and mushrooms. I have my green bean casserole recipe for you right here. It's delicious. This one can be made ahead of time. So if you make the kind of casserole part, you can just keep it in the fridge for a few days, or you can freeze it. Keep the topping separate so it doesn't get soggy. You can do the topping fresh day of, but this is a great make ahead recipe. So I actually make this on this day one. We chop the beans and mushrooms, we make it. I usually make a big double batch and I put it in the fridge for a few days ahead, or a freezer if we're doing something a little later. And then whenever it's, Thanksgiving Day, I'll make the crispy topping and pop that in the oven. So this is a great make ahead recipe, all fresh ingredients, delicious. Then our day two, our activity, we are weaving our placemats, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this one right here just to show you. This is a really sweet way to make a lovely little handmade placemat for your children. And as you watch, it'll also kind of give you a sense of if you wanna use some of these techniques for pie week. If you're doing a lattice, you can do this too. So this is our finished little placemat here, and it's a really lovely way for them to just do some weaving and make a lovely, sweet little placemat. So I will show you kind of how this is done and how you prepare this, just so you can see. So you start with one sheet of felt and you cut it up to about 1 inch here. So my kids always love to call this the wishy-washy, the car wash. So you can get your little car wash felt here and then lay this out, and then take your other colors and just cut a bunch of strips. So you'll have a few that you cut like this and a few cut into full strips. And then your child can choose which colors they would like to do. And then here is a great way to do lattice work, either on a pie or on here, is that you flip back every other one. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and you can have your children begin to kind of look at that pattern. And then we're going to find a color, this lovely color, and we're going to tuck this little friend right into bed. We're gonna tuck them into bed, all cozy up at the top, and we're gonna say, good night, good night, good night. And we're gonna tuck them all into bed. And then we're going to switch our pattern. So down, up. So we wanna cover up the color that we just saw. So we see this red, we're gonna make sure we can't even see it anymore. We're gonna hide that color now. Hide it, hide it, hide it. And then we're gonna choose another color and we're gonna tuck them right into bed. And then we say, good night, good night. And you can see how it just creates this beautiful lattice. So now we have this yellow. Now we're gonna hide our yellow. Goodbye, yellow, goodbye. And it just creates a really easy way to, for them to kind of identify this pattern and to join along in making a lovely little placemat. Good night, good night, good night. And there you see it come together. So you can kind of see how that comes together and creates this lovely little lattice placemat. And then to seal it off, you just take a masking tape and just kind of fold over the masking tape along the edges to secure it so it doesn't fall apart. And then you have this lovely, lovely little placemat. So you can use this technique for your placemats, or you can also use that technique for an actual top of a pie if you'd like to do a lattice pie, because it's a really great way for children to be able to identify the patterns. And it's just a very simple fine motor skill instead of actually like kind of trying to weave things in. And they love tucking those good night. So it's a little sweet thing there. So very fun little one, and they're sweet little keepsakes and they're sweet little autumn placemats. So it's a very simple activity that I just adore. It's a really sweet way to decorate your table with your children. Again, part of that preparation of, okay, we have a feast coming up. We're making the food, we're making the decorations. You can find your little yarn pumpkins or your apples from the weeks before and set everything out, even your little corn dolls. And so you can kind of culminate your decorations with everything you've made throughout the weeks of your autumn curriculum. Then baking day, our dinner rolls, y'all. These are the best rolls you'll ever have in your life. just take my word for it. These are so delicious. So each recipe creates one set of this eight rolls, and I love just putting them in a little round pan, and it creates this beautiful little flower. These are delicious. So in a similar way with any of our bread recipes, I like to just prepare the dough ahead of time, get it rising, and then when it's time to bring my children along, punch it down, divide it up, and they can roll and shape their rolls. Now I do have some tips here on how to successfully shape a dinner roll, because if you just roll it up and plop it in, it won't have that kind of nice taut top. So you want to flip it over and pull, and we want to create this nice tight little roll. So you can see how you pull and pinch the bottom. The kids love to pinch, so that you can see here it's a nice sharp, just a nice taut, smooth little top. And then you put them in your pan like this, and then they'll get nice and tall and fluffy and delicious and look just like this. Now, definitely brush them with butter right when they're out of the oven. They're so delicious. Now with these though, because they're a taller roll, sometimes you just keep an eye on them to make sure they're not getting too warm. Sometimes I even put the pan on another baking sheet so that it doesn't get too brown on the bottom, because you want them to bake long enough so that they're really done, but you also don't want them to get overdone. So just a few tips on that, but they are so yummy, so yummy. And then day 3, painting day, this would essentially be your feast day. So this would probably be Thursday for us in the US. So this kind of culminates with, this is your feast day. So that morning, the activity I have is just mashing potatoes. So you can boil your whole russet potatoes, give it to your children with some butter and milk, and they can use a masher to help you mash up the potatoes. But of course, whatever you're doing that morning, try to bring them along if you're preparing for a feast, and do whatever needs to get done. Yeah, so simple. Mash your potatoes and then have your autumn feast. Set your placemats, set your food, and enjoy your feast together. Sing your blessing, enjoy who's around the table, share what you're all grateful for, share some memories of the year of autumn that you've shared together, and then we'll say good night to the garden. And guys, there is your autumn curriculum. Oh, I can't believe it. Yeah, that's it. And so I have some additional autumn resources at the back, but that closes out our autumn season together. What a fun time. We end with our garden goodnight song here as we say goodnight to the garden. So incredible that we're already talking about the end of autumn. Can't even believe it. But it's a really, really sweet way to end the season.